Hashem, today's daf yomi is Avodah Zarah Chavtes, Avodah Zarah 29. We're going to start on the bottom of 28b, 4 lines from the bottom. Gemara says, Amar of Yehuda, we're still discussing for another amud or so the medical directions of the Gemara, especially because it's in the context of when you're allowed to go to an idolater to treat you. So it says Rav Yehuda, Zibora. Now, let's say you got bit by a hornet, or decharze silva, or if you got if you got a thorn in your foot, or simta, or if you have blisters, the kaivleina, or if you have an eye ailment, the asi lave ishata, or you have a fever, kulu, for all these people with Levani Sakanta, that if you go to the bathhouse, that's going to be considered dangerous. Chama lechama, that a chama, this is a pun, but it's a chama could be a radish, and that's good for a fever. Visilka and a leek is good for a sina. And that's good if you're too cold. The chilufa sakanta, but if you mix it up, it's dangerous. Chamime akrava, that if you got bit by a spider, you should soak it in hot water. But cold for a hornet. The chilufa sakanta, and the opposite is dangerous. Chamime lesilva, you should soak it in hot water for a thorn. Ukarire lechaspanita, and if you have these, or on top of 29a, if you have these cracks on your face, then you need to use cold to get rid of it. The chilufa sakanta, and the opposite is dangerous. Chala lisiburi. So let's say you were a bloodletter, then afterwards it's good to use vinegar. Umonini litanisa. And if you fasted, it's good to eat small fish after the fast. Chilufa sakanta, and the opposite is dangerous. Tachla visibura. Now let's say you eat crest around your bloodletting, that's sakanta. That is going to be dangerous. But ishata visibura, and also if you have a fever and then you let the blood, that's sakanta, that's dangerous. Kaiv ena visibure, let's say you have an eye ailment and you do the bloodletting, sakanta. Sheni ledag, so after Sheni ledag dam, a person needs to let blood, that then he should eat fish, and the next day he should let the blood. That's the second day. And Sheni ledam, and also the day after letting the blood, dag, he should eat the fish. But Shlishi lo sakanta, but if he does it on the third day, that's dangerous. Tanu Rabbanan hamakas dam will yochel chagbash. Somebody who does bloodletting should not eat chagbash. What are chagbash? Well, cholav v'lo, not milk or cheese, v'lo b'tzolam, not onions, v'lo shecholam, not the cress. And in achol, let's say he ate one of these things, what should he do? Amarbai naisi reviyasa dachala, or reviyasa dachamra. He should bring a revius of vinegar, a revius of wine. Unar vinu bahade adadi v'nishli. Mix them together and drink. When he goes to the bathroom, he should go in the eastern part of the city, mishum the kasha recha, because they smell, and the eastern part blows it away. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Malin unkli be Shabbos. You're allowed to fix the unkli on Shabbos. What's the unkli? My unkli, Amar Rabbi Abba, is stumka deliba. So first of all, there's a different girsa here, but istumka sounds like the stomach, but here it means like there's some kind of muscle associated with the heart, that there was an ailment to fix it on Shabbos. And Mayasu say, how do you fix it? Kamuna, what you do is, Maisi kamuna karvaya. You bring a fistful of cumin, vinina, and mint, va'agdana, and like a type of herb that's called the agdana. So whatever that is, vitzitri, and also a different type of herb that or maybe it's, some say it's garlic or onions, va'barata, and hyssop, and all of this, you grind them up, and that will be good. Luliba, if it's for the heart, b'chamra, you mix it with wine. The simanech, and the way to remember it is yayin yisamach lavav enosh. wine gladdens the heart. Lerucha, if it's because you have trouble breathing, then b'mayim, mix it with water, v'simancha, and the way you remember it is v'rucha kim rachapes al pnei hamayim. And lakuda, and if it is for a woman who gave birth and now she's like getting chills, then b'shechar, you mix it with beer, v'simanech lekada al shechna. Rav Acha Berei de Rava Shachaku Lakul Bahadei Adadi. He ground them up, mixed them all together. V'shalakul Chamesh Etzba'atah, and he took a fistful of it, 5 fingers. V'shati, and then he mixed it together and drank. Rav Ashi Shachakul Chad V'chad Lakude. He ground each one up separately. V'shakam Moa Etzba Rabati, Moa Etzba Zutarti, and he would take from each one of them a pinch, basically the thumb with the pinky, pinch it together, and then mix them all together. Amar Papa Ana Abdul Kohani V'Oitasai. He said, Papa said, I did for all these things and it didn't work. That's why, again, we have to be careful not to do it here because Papa tried, it didn't work. Until there was like a merchant there, and Icy Kuza Chadata Umalia Maya, and he brought a jug and he filled it with water. And basically, Urami Bey Tarvada de Duv. So I put in a spoon of honey, the Talule Bey Kochavi, that had basically been suspended all night or outside under the stars. Or Machar Aishte, and the next day, he says to drink it. And Avdi Hachi Vitasai, and I did this, and indeed I was healed. So we see from here, you have to know precisely how to do it. So Tanu Rabban and Shisha Dvarim Merapin Es Sachoa. There are 6 things that heal the person, Michal Yo, from their illness. Refuah said Refuah, and it's a complete healing. The Elohain, Kruv, cabbage, Tardin. This is the leeks. Macy, sin is a type of herb. Yevesha, once it's dried. The Kevas, and the Keva of an animal, which is the maw, the stomach. The Haras, this is the womb. Yosera Sakave, this is the caudate lobe of the liver. Yeshomim Avdagim Kitanim, also small fish. The small fish causes everybody to be able to be fruitful and multiply and heal the entire person. And so they heal the entire way. But there are 10 things that are bad for you. If you're getting over an illness, they'll make you sick again. And it'll be worse the second time around. Basically, it's going to be meat. If you eat the basar of a shar, eat a piece of ox, that's shuman, that's fat. Basar shamin is the amended text. If you eat fatty meat or tzli, basar tzli, roasted meat, basar tziparim, you eat a fowl. Beitza tzliya, a roasted egg, ushachalam, and the grass or tikwachat, you get the haircut. Umerchat, the bathhouse, basically you get wet too quickly. Vina, the cheese, vikaved, and this is the liver. V'yeshamim af agozim, also nuts. V'yeshamim af kishuin, also the gourds. And Tanan debater Shmuel, Lama nikra Shmuel kishuin. Why is it called kishuin? Mipnei shehein kashin l'chol gufo shel adam kecharapos. They're hard for a person like daggers. They're hard for a person like daggers. Okay, now up to the next piece in the Gemara. The ain mistaper mehem b'kol makom. You're never allowed to. The Meir says you can never get a haircut from the idolaters. The Rabbanan said you can get it from them in public because you were worried about that they would hurt you. Rabbanan Yisrael, I'm a mistaper mehem. Let's say there is a Jew getting a haircut from an idolater. Then Roa B'mara, he should look into the mirror. He's able to look into the mirror then to make sure, or he should look in the mirror to make sure that he doesn't get hurt by the idolater. But the idolater gets anger from a Jew. So once the Jew reaches the blurius, they used to have a ponytail on the back of their head, which would be part of their worship, the way they got their hair cut. So the Jew should move his hand away so he doesn't cut anywhere near the haircut and thereby accentuate it. he should look in the mirror. Hey, Chidami, what's the scenario? If it's in public, why does he need the mirror? There are other people around him to see. And if it's in the private domain, Kiroe, how could he get the haircut in the private domain? The doctor could kill him. How would the mirror help? And Nora says, no, it's even in private. This is a way that you can get the haircut in private. Kivin the Ika Mara, since he has a mirror, if he looks like he's a more important person. We already learned 2 days ago that Rabbi Yochanan would go to the idolaters because he was an Adam Choshev, and so they would be afraid to attack him. Rav Chana bar Bizna having mistaper may ove kochavim b'shvilei dinardai. So Rav Chana bar Bizna would get a haircut from the idolaters on the streets of Nardai. And when he was getting this haircut, the idolater said to him, Chana, yi kuecha zuga. Your basically your neck is very good to cut. You got a nice neck for cutting. Amar Teisile, he says, I deserve this. The Avdi at the Rabbi Meir, because I've highlighted the position of Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir said you're not allowed to get a haircut from the idolaters. Gemara says, V'adar Rabbanan lo avar, isn't he also violating the position of the Rabbanan? Because the Rabbanan said you can't get it in private, and this is presumably in private. And the Gemara says, Amor Damar Rabbanan Bershusay Rabbim, but Bershusay Yacham Yamar, do the rabbis really say you can get one in private? And this seems to be like the paths of Nardai, it seems to be private. Who Savar, no, Rav Chana bar Bizna was other position, Shvile de Nardai, Kivin de Shlichi Rabbim, Kershusay Rabbim Damo. That the side roads of Nardai, since a lot of people went there, it was like the public domain. Anyway, we see from here that a Jew, when he's getting a haircut from an idolater, can look in the mirror. But Tosfos points out that there's a difficulty with this, because that this is for a man to look in the mirror is going to be problematic, because it's like it's like the behavior of a woman. It's like Beged Isha, that the man is plucking the white hairs from his body. And so Tosfos writes, what's the reason? Because Kiatam Ishmo Yilbash Gever Semos Isha. That the Mitargim will talking Gever Betikne Betikune Itis. A man is not allowed to groom himself like a woman. And Tosfos writes, Halacha Maisa, the Asr was stopper me over Kochavim. You're now allowed to get a haircut from idolater. Elam Kinro, Afilu Shusarabim. So Tosfos says you can't get a haircut from an idolater. But as it respects to a mirror, Tosfos also is strict. He says, Tosfos writes, that if you're looking in the mirror to beautify yourself, it's prohibited. To avar mishum yobash gever. That's going to be a violation of dressing like a woman. But if you're doing it so you don't hurt yourself, that would be okay. So that's vaday mutter. And he says, okay, the one who looks into our hearts, God, he knows if you're looking to make yourself look better, or if you just want to make sure you don't cut yourself when you're giving yourself a haircut. So Tosfos is strict. And the Shulchan Aruch paskins like Tosfos. Nevertheless, the Ramah is lenient and normal, and the Ramah is lenient based upon the Ran, who is much more lenient, because it says it depends on the context. Nowadays, men look in the mirror. And so therefore, this is one of the very rare, perhaps only twice, where the Shulchan Aruch was Sephardic paskins like the Ashkenazi Tosfos, and the Ramah, who's Ashkenazi, paskins like the Sephardic Tosfos. And that's why Ashkenazim are allowed to look in the mirror. Let me just look. Even though we usually don't do this during the daf, we'll just go to the Aliba de Hilchasa. We'll just go in the back here. The Sif de Shas, the Aliba de Hilchasa says on Avodah Zarah 29a, he says here, he says, Asro ish l'stakel b'mara mishum yilbash gever, elam kein mishum refuah. He said the man can't look at the mirror unless it's for a haircut. Kigon shechoshish beinav, like unless it's or he's worried about his health. Oshem misaparat, or he gets a haircut. V'yesh omrim, and so there he's quoting in all this. He's quoting the position of the Shulchan Aruch, and but then he writes Yesh omrim shemasha asar l'ropa mara hayna dafka b'makom shein derech l'ropa mara rak nashim. Some say that's only where only women look. And that's when it's prohibited, and that's a violation of grooming yourself like a woman. But in a place where men look, then it's permitted. So and there he cites the position of the Rama, and so exactly like I said before, that this is an unusual case where Ashkenazim are relying on Sephardim to be lenient, and the Sephardim rely upon the Ashkenazim to be strict. But I'm not sure how the modern day poskim in the Sephardim paskin, but if they're paskin like this, then strictly speaking, it's a problem for the Sephardic men. So on the bottom of 29a, so the Gemara says, idolater that gets a haircut from a Jew, the Jew gives the idolater a haircut. Once he reaches this ponytail, which is part of their idolatry service, he has to stop cutting. Kama, how far away? Amar of Malkiah, Amar of Adabarabba, Sholosh Etbos. He has to stop 3 fingers, we'll call ruach for ruach. And now we have this statement, which every time this Malkiah and Malkiah appear in the Shas, we have this statement. And so therefore it appears at least 4 other places. And what is the amount of Chanina Bered Ravika? Shfud, Shvachos, Vegumos, as relates to a spit. And if you cook something on Yantif, whether on a spit, then you can move it to the side. And smoke somebody, you can move it to the side. Shvachos, that even if a woman comes into the marriage with a lot of maids, we still make her do some work, so she doesn't have idle hands. Vegumos, and these are the moles on the genitalia of a girl to prove she's an adult. That was where Rav Malkio said, but Blurius, Efer Mikla, Vigvina, but this statement about Blurius and Efer Mikla, that you can't put ashes on a wound because it looks like a tattoo, or Gvina, that the cheese of an idolater is prohibited, that's Rav Malkiyah. And Amar Papa Masnisa, Rav Papa argues, says the one that's, as relates to a Mishnah, that's Rav Malkiyah. Shmaitita Rav Malkiyah, but as it relates to an Amoraic statement, not just a Mishnah or Brisa, that is Rav Malkiyah. The Simana, and the way you remember is Masnisa, Malkasa, and my Benau, and the difference between them, Ika Benau Shvachos. That Rav Chan is about the maids. Rav Chanina said that it was like Rav Malkiyah, and Rav Papa said it's like Rav Malkiyah. Okay, we're not going to go into all these sugyas because we learned each of them when we came to their major source, to their primary source. So now we're on the top of 29b, and the focus of our Masechta the next 2 weeks is going to be about wine, the Yayin Nesach. So Eud Varim Shal Ovdei Kochavim Asurin. This is the wine. These are the things of the idolaters that are prohibited, the Isuran, Isurana, and they're prohibited to have any benefit from them. Hayayin v'hachom. That's wine and vinegar. Shal Ovdei Kochavim. The wine and the vinegar of idolaters is prohibited. What's the reason why the wine of the idolaters is prohibited? So the assumption of most Rishonim is that it's prohibited because the Chachamim prohibited you to get any benefit from wine because there's a concern that he used it for idolatry. That's what Rashi says. And Rashi says the time of the Asr Ba'anam shouldn't the Dilma Naskehu. Maybe they used it as a libation. They like poured it. They stuck their hand in and did like a pouring out of it. And so too, however, there's another decree. There's another reason. This is by Tosos Rabbeinu Elchanan. He says that maybe it's because there's a decree. You might come to marry their daughters, meaning to say that we want to not share their wine, and then we're going to come to marry them, as the Gemara is going to say on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis. And so that's Tosos Rabbeinu Elchanan. But so one reason is we're worried that it's idolatry, but another possible reason is if we start drinking their wine, then we're going to come to party with them and marry with them. So these are the things of the idolaters that are prohibited, and it's prohibited to have benefit. Wine, the chometz shall have become the vinegar because it was originally wine, so it's prohibited at that point. Hydrani, and this is the Hadrianic pottery. She says that they knew how to like basically transport the wine in this pottery and then reabsorb it. It was like dehydrated wine. But Oris Levuvin, this is like the skin from when they would cut out the heart of an animal in order to worship it to idolatry. So that skin that they would cut off was also part of the idolatry and it was prohibited. That's only if it was a circular cut. Mashal, but if it's elongated, it's mutter. Basar nichnas lavod, it's kochavim. Also, if they bring meat into the idolatry home, if they bring it into the temple, mutter, it's permitted. It hasn't gone in there. By Yotze, but once it's on its way out, also neshu kizivche mesim, and it's part of the offering. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Hahochin l'trufos, hahochin l'tarpos. If they're idolaters, and this really is. It's a question why this is even here. It should really be earlier, but ha'ochel and tarpos, if they're going to their idolatrous fairs, she says to their idolatry, also says what then you know how to do business with them once they're on their way there, because they're going to give praise to their idolatry. But if they're coming back from there, mutar is permitted. No dos ha'ovdei kochavim. Let's say you have the flasks of the idolaters, the kankehen and their jugs. The yain shel Yisrael kanus bahen, and the wine of the Jew is in them. Then it's asurin. It's prohibited. The isuran isurana. You can't have any benefit. Divrei Meir. Chum say, you're allowed to have benefit, but you can't drink it. What's the reason why you can't drink it? Because this is the concept of kavosh k'mavushal. That once something was stayed in there for 24 hours, even though it's not hot, it's absorbed the flavor, and therefore it's getting the flavor of the wine. This is an issue with some of the casks today that they want to make some of the spirits in the wine barrels, and they leave it there for 24 hours, so therefore it's absorbing the taste from the wine, and so therefore that could be problematic. Chum say you just can't drink it. Let's say you have the dried skins and the seeds and the skins of the idolaters. Asurin is prohibited to be isura and isura. It's prohibited to have benefit to very mayor. Asurin. If it's moist, it's prohibited by Yavesh, and once it's dried, it's mutar and it's permitted. Hamurias. So the morias, this is the like fish oil, vina space, unyaki, and the cheese of this place, unyaki, shaodek chavim asurim v'isurim asura, not they're married, they're prohibited. The Gemara is going to say, well, you can have any benefit. Hamam many surni surah, that you could eat them, but you can't get benefit. Hamar Rabbi Yehuda, the Chum say you can't eat them, but you can get benefit. Hamar Rabbi Yehuda, Shal Rabbi Shmuel asked Rabbi Yeshua, Kishayom Ma'acham B'derach. So Rabbi Shmuel asked Rabbi Yeshua, they're walking on the road. He said, why is the cheese of the idolaters prohibited? The way they would make cheese is they would put the milk into the keva. The keva is one of the stomachs of the cow. It's called the maw, and it has enzymes in there. Even though the enzymes are much less than 60th, since their whole purpose is to create this chemical reaction which would cause the milk to turn into cheese, then it's going to be prohibited. So in the animal, this kiva of this animal that wasn't slaughtered, and so therefore it's not kosher. Amar lo, so they said to him, kivas ola chamura mikivas nevila, but isn't the law of an ola offering stricter than a nevela, because you can't have any benefit from an ola, and we know Amru Kohen Shadaito Yafa, and we know that a Kohen who was like basically not afraid to do things, Sarfo Chaya, he would swallow this part of the animal whole, below Hodulo, and the rabbis did not agree, and the rabbis did not agree with this position that the Kohen's allowed to swallow it, but they said, and they said, ideally you're not allowed to benefit, but lo mo'alim, but if you do swallow it, you're not considered to be misappropriating it. And we see from here that technically speaking, you would be allowed to swallow it. And that's even by an Ola offering. And so by Ola is more strict than Nevela. So for sure, so if that's the case, why do we say that you're prohibited to eat it? If you're allowed to get benefit from the Ola mala, you should be able to eat from the cheese. So no, it's not that they just put it in a regular carcass. They put it in the maw of the calf of the idolaters, which they bring as an offering. And by idolaters, even their dung is prohibited because the bigger it gets, they use every part of the animal. So anyway, we see from here that that's why you can't eat their cheese. So if that's the case, that it's the keva of the idolatry, if that's the case, the Chum should have said that it's even prohibited to have benefit. So the Gemara is going to take up this discussion, but in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yishmael changed the topic. He changed the topic. Amrlo. So basically, since Rabbi Yeshua didn't want to discuss this topic, he changed it. He said, Yishmael, how do you read the pasuk? Ki tovim dodecha miyayin, o ki tovim dodayach. Do you read it in the masculine? In which case, the Jewish people are asking God, you're more beloved than wine, or ki tovim dodayach, or is it God speaking to the Jewish people in the feminine? Amrlos, Rabbi Yishmael responded, Ki tovim dodayach. He reads it in the feminine, that it's God speaking to the Jewish people. So Rabbi Yeshua says, Amrlo ain't a devake. No. Because the next pasuk tells us, so it's in the masculine. Change the topic. So then the Gemara says, Yayim mino. And how do we know that the wine is prohibited to get any benefit? Amar Baravua, Amar Kra, it's based upon the fact that the pasuk says, Asher chelav zivachemo yochelo yishtu yayin nisicham. Meaning to say the pasuk compares the libation of the wine to a sacrifice to idolatry. Just like their sacrifice are prohibited, also their wine. How do we know their sacrifice is prohibited? So just like a dead body is prohibited to have benefit, also a sacrifice. How do we know a dead body itself is prohibited? We learn out from the decapitated heifer, the egla rufa. It's prohibited to have benefit. How do we know by the egla rufa it's prohibited? And it's like kachim, and so it's prohibited to have benefit. Also the vinegar of the idolaters that was initially wine is going to be prohibited to have benefit. Pshita, it's obvious. Why would you say if it started off as vinegar, if it started off as wine, it became vinegar, why would it become permitted to have benefit once it became vinegar? Pshita, why would its prohibition go away once it became vinegar? Amar Vashi, and it's teaching us that that if we put our vinegar into the idolaters, our vinegar is permitted because they don't use it as libation. So even it started off as wine, so we don't need a double seal. For them, we need a double seal. But for them, we can't use their vinegar. So if we give them our vinegar, we only need one seal. If you're worried about libation, they're not going to libate with vinegar. If you're worried they're going to switch our vinegar with their vinegar, since there's one seal, it's sufficient. They're not going to forge it. So Amar Rabbi Eli, Shaninu, and we learned in the Brisa, let's say the idolaters cooked their wine. It's called pasteurized wine. If it was initially wine that they had usher because they might have used it as libation before they cooked it. Pshita, it's obvious. Just because it was cooked, that its prohibition disappears. So if we have wine that was cooked and we gave it v'yad oivdu kochavim, ein tzarach chosem tochosem, we only need one seal. If we're worried that about a libation, Well, Manaske, they're not going to use it as a libation. The imishim and chalufein, if we're they're going to switch our yaim of bushel with theirs, kimendika chosem echad. Once there's one seal, it's enough. Well, tarachim is like they're not going to switch it out. Right. This is today's daf. Baruch Hashem. Tomorrow's daf, God willing, we will do.